It looks like we have a quorum, so I am going to call this meeting to order, and we will move into roll call.
All right. Thanks everybody for being here. Mary?
I am here.
Catherine?
Here.
Jeanette?
Here.
Ernest?
Here.
We won't call the wall. Jessica?
Here.
Let's see. And Wolfgang is not present. Tabia is not present. Andy?
Here.
Rendell?
Here.
Okay.
All right, next on our agenda is our joint recitation of our mission. So we will recite that together. Act as a strong advocate to justice and equal opportunity by providing citywide leadership and guidance in the area of civil rights. And we will start with public comment, and just going to read a brief statement. We welcome comments and questions, and we commit on our side to listening carefully and thoughtfully to what we hear. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. The commission requests that you refrain from engaging in personal attacks against staff or members. Please focus your comments and questions on matters related to human rights within the city. Webinar attendees can use the raise hand function. Phone attendees use *9.
Great, and Tanisha Hudson has her hand up.
All right, Ms. Hudson, you're up.
So I only wanted to come on tonight to address your the special meeting or the work session that you all had trying to address public comment. I just listened to your mission. Your mission states that you are to serve as an advocate for civil rights. Public comment is basically freedom of speech. If you don't want to be publicly attacked, then don't publicly attack individuals within the city. And I want to make myself clear because me and the city have a love-hate relationship when it comes to First Amendment rights. Stop taking everything that people say as a personal attack unless you actually did the attack, and listen to the message. We're dealing with a time in this city where Black leaders and Black citizens have been treated as if they don't belong. And if you all feel sensitive to someone coming on and addressing what someone on your board personally did to attack someone else, then you have to do some soul searching. Because if I see it, if you see it representing this commission, you're supposed to call it out. That's your job. Yes, you're acting as an advocate. Yes, you're doing a job that you're not being paid for, but you signed up for this. And when you sign up for boards and commissions, you sign up for public critique. If you don't want to be critiqued, then this might not be a job for you. I had a conversation with Todd after the meeting up at Midway Manor, and we spoke about this. I'm big on First Amendment rights, but I'm also big on doing my advocacy work, and I don't get paid for what I do either. I'm not paid for my job. And I think I work a heck of a lot more hours than what most people think, and just doing the advocacy that I do in this city. And I also spend my own money that I work for to uncover the truth. And that's something that this commission needs to sit and have a conversation about, because you all should be doing the work that I'm doing, because that's what your board was designed for. But I'm spending my money to do it and uncover it. So again, I wanted to come on and address that, because people are being sensitive to comments being made, but they're not sensitive when they're attacking individuals, and that's not okay. We're not gonna have that, because then you're gonna have to deal with being critiqued once the truth come out. And the truth is out now. The cat is out the bag. We know what's going on in this city. So again, listen to the message. Don't listen to the way it's delivered. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Ms. Hudson. Do we have any other individuals up for public comment?
Right now, you do not. And just to let you know, again, Anna Mendez is in the attendees. I believe she also requested a spot on the agenda later on in.
Yeah, she's on the agenda. So next up is the commission response to matters by the public. And I just wanted to say one thing, which is that I want to be really clear that while we requested that there not be personal attacks against staff, we understand the First Amendment, and we would certainly not stop anybody from engaging in that kind of dialogue. And I think the message, Ms. Hudson, that you had to listen to the message hard is something I will personally take to heart. And we understand that people are permitted to come and share their thoughts, whatever those are. So I don't know if anyone else, any other commissioners have a response to matters by the public. Okay, next up on our agenda is a very large list of minutes. So I think, Todd, in the past with the committee minutes, it's been a little confusing because it isn't clear like who is eligible to vote, and I'm not sure how we should mark that, but only the people obviously who participated in the meeting are going to vote on the minutes. So we may want to just identify those people with each committee as we go through the list. So first up, we have the September 2nd Legal Representation Committee meeting minutes.
Mary, could I ask a question before we move to the votes? So if only 2 people were at the meeting, does a quorum constitute 1 person? Like, I was a little confused about that in terms of adopting them.
It's not clear to me, having looked at the bylaws today, that there's any rule about a quorum in a committee.
Okay.
And the bylaws speak to the number of individuals who have to be here for a quorum of the full commission, but I don't think there's any rules about the committee. So I would, and the committees are a little bit in flux in terms of like people who show up and people who don't show up. So I would suggest that the people who were there vote, and if there's no majority that's of the people who were there, then they wouldn't be passed. But if the people who are there vote, then we'll consider those approved.
Thank you.
So I have 2 screens open. I can't pull up the minutes at the same time. Todd, do you know who were the individuals present at the September 2nd Legal Representation Committee meeting?
I will pull that up if you give me.
I've got it. I can do that.
Great.
I can serve this role if you'd like.
That would be fantastic.
Very helpful.
Okay. On September 2nd, the roll call was Catherine and Mary.
Oh, well, that is good to know. Catherine, do I get a thumbs up for approval of the minutes?
Yes.
Me too. Okay, those minutes are approved.
Okay. September 9th, it was just Mary.
I totally approve those minutes. Love those minutes. Okay.
On September 16th, yeah, sorry. So the roll call was Mary, Catherine, Jeanette, Jessica, Wolfgang, Sue, Lindell, and Ernest.
And just one note on those minutes, and Ernest and I talked about this. I think when Jenny was doing the minutes and capturing the last vote on in the work session about the language access plan, I think there was some glitch in the box cast, and Ernest was not on screen, but I did confirm later via email that he was present and did vote. But I think at that point we were still doing this rather than an oral vote, and so nobody knew that he voted. So we've got that confirmed, and I will add that back to the final minutes. So this current thing still says 6 people. It should say 7 in favor.
Okay. So do we have a vote for the approval of the September 16th regular meeting minutes? And you can vote by thumbs up or by speaking.
And I can do a roll call vote since that was
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, just
okay.
since it's a full one.
Okay.
And I may call people that aren't here, but we'll go that way anyway and just see how many we've got here. So Mary.
Yes.
Catherine.
Approve.
Jeanette.
Approve.
Ernest.
Approve.
Jessica.
Approve.
And I guess Wolfgang was present, but is not here now. And then Andy.
Abstain. I think which one is that?
Andy was not present for this.
Right.
Not present. Okay, you abstain. And Lindell.
Yes, approve.
Okay. And so I guess the question is also if you've got right now you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. Like maybe this holds until the next meeting when we have a quorum, since that would probably, I don't know. It's kind of complicated. Oh, you're on mute, Mary.
The meeting has a quorum. I think we can take the action. It doesn't indicate that we need a quorum as to approval of the,
Great.
Right? We have a quorum for this meeting. We can take action. So we have a majority of folks there voted, and I think those minutes are approved.
That seems reasonable. Thank you.
Okay.
October 7th, the roll call, Mary, Catherine, and Jessica.
Okay.
Approve.
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 Those minutes are approved.
Okay. October 7th, this is the Legal Representation Committee, and that was just Catherine.
Double approve.
Okay. October 14th, Accessibility Committee meeting. Wolfgang, Sue, and Lindell. I approve. All right. October 21st, the regular meeting. So you want to call them? Oh, I'll tell who was there and to remind everybody.
I was not there.
Catherine, Jeanette, Ernest, Jessica, Wolfgang, and myself. So we're all eligible to vote on this one.
And I was slow on the draw, but I will just read names and you can abstain when I forget that you said you weren't here. Mary, and I think you might have been the one who said you weren't there.
Yeah, no, I was sick. Yep.
Yeah, that was the one you were sick. Okay, Catherine.
Approve.
Jeanette.
Approve. Thank you.
Ernest.
Approve.
Jessica.
Approve.
Andy.
Abstain.
Okay. And Lindell.
Approve.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. And finally, the November 4th Community Engagement Committee meeting.
Lindell, Andrew, Jessica, and Catherine.
Can I make a correction request? It says Committee Engagement Committee, and it should be Community Engagement Committee.
Ah, right.
Good catch.
All right, with that agreed upon correction, do we have approval?
Approve.
Okay. All right, great. We will move on to business matters. And our first matter of business is that we have a speaker, Anna Mendez, who's coming to talk about housing discrimination against people with mental health and substance abuse challenges. So we are going to move Ms. Mendez from attendee to panelist. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. I just wanted to check in. Can you guys all hear me? There's this strange like Zoom limbo where you're like reconnecting, and I always like catch my breath, and I'm like, am I gonna reconnect correctly? So thank you very much for the invitation. The invitation to join you and to have some time on your agenda. I am gonna come to you with two separate but related requests this evening, both of them having to do with protecting the rights of the citizens of Charlottesville who are living with mental illness or the disease of addiction. I am the executive director of an organization called A Partner for Mental Health. We support community members who are living with psychiatric disabilities to access the clinical care that they decide they want for themselves and to address their social determinants of health. Housing is probably the issue on which our team spends the biggest time. There are motels operating within the city limits of Charlottesville who are explicitly denying service to our clients on the basis of their disability. Our staff have called motels and asked, like anonymously, do you have any vacancies? And we are told yes. And then we say who we are and that we will be the payer source. And then we have been explicitly told, and I am quoting here, we do not rent to your people. And click, all of a sudden there's no longer a vacancy. And I know that this has not just happened to Partner for Mental Health. We work closely with TJAC and Home to Hope, and it has happened, it happens to them and their teams as well. It has happened recently, which is what triggered why I'm here with you guys today, because I'm frustrated and I don't know what else to do. Our client to whom it happened most recently, when it happened, I reached out to Todd, and Todd says, you know, here's the process for filing a complaint. And when you are a person who is living with a psychiatric disability, filing a complaint can require a level of executive functioning that your disability, by definition, prevents you from being able to access. And I asked Todd, may I, as the executive director of the organization that is witnessing firsthand this discrimination, file a complaint? And what we were told by the guidance we received from the city attorney is that because we are not the harmed party, we do not have standing to bring forth a complaint. It must be the individual. And in this case, this individual made a very rational decision, which was that he knows that we only have a finite amount of time to support him, and that he would prefer to use the time that we have to support him to actually securing housing rather than spending it filing a complaint, especially when this is probably the 100th time that he has experienced discrimination in his life. And so there's also a significant element of learned helplessness as well. We are incredibly frustrated, and we believe that this systemic discrimination is happening because it is happening against the very people that are least able to speak for themselves. And we have been told that because we lack standing, we cannot file the complaint on their behalf. In talking with Todd, I have learned, and I may get my terminology wrong, I apologize. I have learned that there is a HUD structure that that your committee could be moving towards that would, I don't know that it would allow me to bring forth a complaint, but it would at least allow for the director of the City Office of Human Rights to bring forth complaints in situations like this. And so my first ask to you is that you please prioritize and expedite becoming an entity that has that power. Because right now, tonight, this very night, harm is happening to residents of the city of Charlottesville because we do not have an adequate remedy to this systemic discrimination. That's kind of that was the first statement that I had, and I'm very happy if anyone has questions or need kind of before I move on to my next thoughts, if you have questions about that or kind of would like some more information, I am happy to provide it.
Lindell?
So first of all, thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. I'm very, very sorry to hear this. And I am very disheartened to hear that that there are rules in place to restrict access to help and assistance in something like this. So I appreciate what you asked us to do to expedite the HUD thing, but I actually have a question about this process. I want to push back just a little bit on this, on the reading that you were given, and is it not possible for someone to serve as an advocate and be present and assist with the complaint? I mean, what is the, I mean, I'm just asking, can someone just help start it and then be the voice going forward? Is that a possibility as well?
We would have to help the individual like fill out the complaint and kind of go through that process, and they have to be the driver. And what I am trying to express to you is that for many of the people that we support, that requires a level of executive functioning that their very disease prevents them from being able to access. And so we would physically have to be doing that with them, and we would, and believe me, we really want to, but every hour that we're doing that with them, we are not helping them find a place to be sheltered tonight, which is their very rational priority.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I did want to follow up on that because I guess I just feel like I want to push back on this ruling and this decision and find out what, you know, Jessica just asked a great question, which was going to be one of my next ones too, which is, could one of us do that? Could there be another advocate who could spend that time and do that time? Is it something that somebody from the committee, does it have to be, I don't know, you know, I want us to do the HUD thing. I want us to be able to help you legally. I want to do all this stuff, but I'd also like to help more immediately if there's a way to do that. And so I'd like for us to think outside the box, push back on the city a little bit and say, wait a minute, why? What else can we do, right?
I think those are all, you know, really, really, really good solutions. I also would just like to let you know that the amount of time that it has taken for us to build rapport with some of the people that we support, it's not that like that I couldn't call up Lindell and say, hey Lindell, I'm sending someone over to your house to like work, like I mean, we're talking, I can't even tell you how many hours of just building rapport and relationship with people.
Understood.
So I would just say that under federal law, the standing principle for the Fair Housing Act discrimination is incredibly broad. Fair housing organizations can bring suit, testers can bring suit. And I haven't looked at the ordinance with this in mind because of course, you know, because I'm, you know, hearing this, but I want to, because it seems to me that if our ordinance does not allow that, we should change that ordinance. I mean, obviously we should analyze the ordinance and determine what we think, but we can recommend a change to the ordinance to allow, you know, third-party complaints about, you know, systemic discrimination or other issues. And there's certainly precedent because federal law is like very clear that Fair Housing Act complaints have the broadest kind of standing. Jessica, did you have your hand up? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did. And I just want to reiterate what I hear Lindell saying, and I feel it too. Like, I fully appreciate what you're saying. You're saying something on a systemic basis. In my heart, and I'm sure Lindell's heart, and Lindell, you can shake your head if you don't agree with me, like it's wanting to have the immediate. So I still do want to hear from you, like, how can we immediately help you? Why it just takes time for us to change things, unfortunately. And that has nothing to do with because we're not willing to. But my second question, I'm not a lawyer, but I know family members have had to institute this, like they have had a power of attorney. Could a power of attorney on behalf of this person also file the complaint? I'm addressing that to Todd, Mary, I don't know, legally. Is that
so what I would have to say to that is that powers of attorney and or guardianship are significant invasions of people's civil rights. And we strongly, strongly oppose them in all but the absolute last resort for people. And we're also talking about people with serious mental illness who have such limited support that they're unsheltered. And so the idea that, I mean, if they had a family member who was willing to be their guardian or their power of attorney, they would probably have a family member, you know, with whom they could live. So I'm really appreciative of the creative problem solving and like the desire to do better. Like it's just incredibly clear from the questions that you guys are asking that you're not okay with the status quo. And I'm really, really grateful for what I'm hearing. I'm also, I think I saw my chat is kind of coming in and out, I'm sorry, but there is a question in the chat, who determines harm? Isn't Anna's organization experiencing harm due to the discrimination? Thank you. I think we are. The city attorney disagrees with me. We are the entity whose payment is being declined. And it's not just, I mean, it's us, it's TJAC, it's Home to Hope when Home to Hope was paying for housing. So yes, I agree that I think you can make the argument that we are the entity that's being harmed. But yes, we're being prevented from doing it. My chat I think is functioning better now. Yes, like we are being prevented from doing artwork. So I agree with you 110%, Lindell, and Todd knows that because I was like, no, Todd, we are harmed. Like we do have standing. But that's not what that is not what we have been told by the city. And so if it is as simple, I understand that moving in the HUD direction is not a quick fix, and I still hope that you're gonna move in that way. And if there's something that you can do with the ordinance that would make it explicitly clear that yes, people who witness systemic discrimination also have standing, that would be wonderful.
I think at the very least, I think in an organization who is clearly working on behalf of an individual, they should have standing. I mean, this should be a pretty easy kind of thing. I mean, you're doing work that you are engaged to do, mm-hmm. and that means that you need to provide housing. You're being prevented from doing so. I just think this is such mm-hmm. a kind of a ridiculous situation.
Thank you. I agree. That's why I'm here.
I don't want to cut this discussion short because I think we should continue talking about it, but I want to suggest that as an action that we put this on the agenda of the housing committee and have a meeting, and therefore we could review the ordinance and come back with a recommendation about proposing language to change the ordinance if we think that is necessary versus other advocacy with the city attorney's office. But I want us to keep talking about this, Andy.
Is there a city ordinance that's specific to who can make complaints? Like we're not talking about the Human Rights Commission ordinance or OHR. This is a city ordinance that.
No, we're talking about the human rights ordinance.
Okay.
Because it does talk about. Mm-hmm. I didn't look at it with this in mind, but it does talk about the process.
Okay, I was just curious which specific ordinance we're talking about for that.
And Andy, just to clarify with the FAP, that's the Fair Housing Assistance Program, the program that's a work share with HUD. All the amendments that bring the ordinance into what they call substantial equivalence to federal fair housing law, includes all of those director initiated complaint procedures. And of course, and Anna, you may know this, may not, but what we have to do, and so that's getting really close to being done. It's a huge amendment to the ordinance. The next step is actually reviewing that with the city attorney's office to make sure we're okay, but then we have to get that in front of council, because only council can approve and amend ordinances. So we can do all the work, but it's up to council to vote on it. So just so you know, that's kind of the process we're going through. How quickly we can get that is sort of dependent on council's ability to get it on the agenda and how hard we push to do that. But just so you know, that's kind of where we're at with it, which doesn't provide any immediate relief, but I wanted you to be aware.
Jessica?
Anna, I'm not gonna let this go. What can we do like tonight? Like, do we need to be contacting the press to put out a statement that this is happening? Can we do a GoFundMe? Like, no, I'm dead serious. Like, there's someone that will house this person deep in my gut if they knew what was going on. Like, I am not that person. If I had a house, I would do it. I genuinely want to know like what, so those are like long-term, like they're not going to happen immediately. Like, and I really want to hear from you. What tonight can we do as a commission? I thank you for, I'm only speaking at you because I hear all the things that you're speaking in the spirit that you're bringing. So I appreciate you bringing this to our attention. What do we need to do tonight that you would feel supported in this moment?
Jessica, that is like, wow, thank you. This whole issue has weighed so heavily on us that I'm like absolutely overwhelmed by the fact that someone is like, I actually want to help, help right now. And that's a really good question. I think it would be, so you said GoFundMe. I don't actually know that like GoFundMe is the route. But what I would say is I do believe that I know that there are funds available for people who are unsheltered and are at imminent risk of hospitalization. And we are very grateful for those funds, and we are currently accessing them on behalf of quite a few clients right now. If we could, I mean, a GoFundMe would be great, but if a GoFundMe isn't actually gonna happen, if we could, and I don't know who puts the parameters on that pot of funding, but if we could loosen the parameters so that we would not have to prove that someone is at risk of hospitalization in order to access them, that would be hugely beneficial. I mean, and because that money is there, we access it through TJAC, and if Anthony is listening, like, we are so incredibly grateful, and he is a rock star. But the fact that it has to get to that crisis, so what happens is people go unsheltered, and then they almost get to the point of hospitalization, and then we can access those funds. And if we could just skip that, if we could loosen those requirements so that we could skip that period of unshelteredness when people can't access housing because of the things that these motels are doing, that would be great.
And Anna, who controls those funds?
That's a good question. We access them through TJAC. And I don't actually know who has put the parameters on them. Todd might. I'm putting him on the spot. He's like, no, I have no idea, Anna.
I don't. And I know we've worked together to support people, and it's the rules are not clearly defined. And so I think, it's difficult.
Is this potentially something where someone from the city could talk to TJAC and negotiate, support negotiating, you know, a swifter release of the funds? I mean, that feels like something like the Human Rights Commission doesn't really have any authority with TJAC, but we do with the city. Mm-hmm. I mean, not authority, but, you know, mm-hmm. So is that a route that we could take?
So I'll comment on that a little bit. I think we have taken that route a bit to try to get some things to mm-hmm. move before, but you know, I'm curious, like, because this is a different thing than it's more like getting, once you have the funds, getting the hotel to accept them, unless this is the separate mm-hmm. issue that you're talking about, Anna.
If there were if we could intervene sooner, I think, prior to people's symptoms of their disease making them behave in ways they would not otherwise behave, I think we would have better success at getting motels to allow them to stay there.
Ernest?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of that, but that was kind of my comment, kind of what Jessica, I was feeling the same frustration that Jessica was feeling. And I hear you. And I hear us trying to find a way to get monies to help, but monies is not going to help if people that have rooms available are not going to let individuals in. So there, I mean, and we know that during the week, hotels are pretty much empty in Charlottesville until weekends or some special event. And I'm having a hard time understanding how you're not someone that has the ability to stay, that needs help, that we're not helpful in the city. That just bothers me, that you would deny someone an opportunity to get out from in the elements and things like that. Mm-hmm. And you have money to pay for it, especially after going through a pandemic and everything else and people not going anywhere. You have money coming in and you deny them. That, I just can't fathom that. And I hear you, Anna, about the fact, yes, if people had access to relatives and people like that, that could bring them in, they would do that. Yeah. But you know, I hear us trying to find a way to get monies, and I hope that we can change the ordinance. But again, just like Jessica said, what can we do right now? And if we can't find somebody, I don't know what we can do as far as press release, something on state, or something to say, you know, we got to do better as far as a city for our individuals who need this type of help. And I don't know what else we can do. But I hear you, and I'm very frustrated as well, because I remember when I first moved here, I went to a church that's what we did. When people would come off the bus, they would make a left turn, walk right down to First Baptist, and we were able to find housing for people in hotels for at least a couple of days, and it wasn't an issue. But now all of a sudden, you guys can't let people in to have money because of who they may be. That's just totally wrong. So I hope there's something we can do to help make things easier for you, and can move this forward beyond where it is right now until we can get an ordinance change and that type of stuff. So I hear you, and
I do think the ability to support people prior to being in crisis would go a long way. And I also, which is hard to do right now, something that could also be helpful, and I feel like I'm making work for Todd, but I am, would possibly be a letter written by the Human Rights Commission that gets sent out. I mean, I imagine if you're a hotel or a motel, you have a unique type of like business license, right? So I don't think it should be super hard for this with the city, right? I don't think it should be super hard for the city to generate a list of every single hotel or motel within the city limits. And the letter could just explicitly say, hey, remember that discrimination on the basis of disability and or payer source is illegal and you can't do it. And we, the city, know that it's happening and it's not okay with us. And we are serious about changing it. I think that would, and that's work for Todd, but that is right now, I think that could open people's eyes.
So I'm not sure whether that's work for Todd or work for
the
commission. I think it might be us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, yeah, I'm thinking that at the very least, a letter going out for pretty quickly that just says, you know, even if we don't get it to every individual place right now, but if we do a public letter that goes out to the public with some press attention that just says, this has come to our attention, it's appalling, it's unacceptable, be on notice that we're not going to let this continue, right? I mean, I think some way of doing that would be really important for us to do as quickly as we could.
Do we have a consensus of the commission that that's an action that folks would like to take? Yeah. Ernest, are you speaking? Because you're on mute.
I was, but it wasn't anything significant. It was just, what else can we do to help? I mean, I just don't know what else we can do to change the hearts of, I don't know, managers, front desk people, or what have you, to get the call to say, oh, this organization called, don't take their money. Huh? That just blows my mind. How do you do that? You know, it's discrimination.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ernest. I was just going to say, I think we need to proceed on maybe dual tracks, because we do need to analyze the ordinance and, you know, see whether that, you know, what we think of kind of that analysis, and then whether we want to recommend an ordinance change in addition to kind of whatever we want to do with the kind of public letter.
May I make one request? I've just had a thought. I've spent a lot of time talking about how bad some motels and hotels are, and that is absolutely the main focus of what I'm here to say. And Ashley Shiflett is the property manager of Affordable Suites in the city of Charlottesville. And that woman is a rock star. And Affordable Suites never turns us down, ever. And not only do they never turn us down, but she calls us when she rarely has vacancies, but when she does have vacancies, she calls us and says, before I rent this to anyone else, do you know someone who needs it? So if you're gonna write a public letter calling out the bad actors, I've been thinking a lot about how I don't even know what to do to celebrate Ashley Shiflett. If you would be willing to just write a letter of commendation to her and to Affordable Suites, that would also like the service that she is. It's silly. It sounds a little silly because they're a motel, but the service that she is providing to this community really cannot be overstated. She runs a safe, affordable, clean, and supportive place that has been integral to the health and wellness of many of our clients.
Ernest, is your hand still up, or is that a remnant of last time?
No, it was from last time. But it's good to know those things, Anna, because yes, we don't want to burn bridges with people that are doing what you need them to do and helping that way. So that's good to know.
Did everyone notice Jeanette's comment?
Oh, no, I didn't. Where's?
Yeah, that was a good one.
Andy also has a comment in the chat. I was just suggesting we could reach out to CEDL tomorrow. They would likely do an article where, you know, Anna, Ashley, and a commissioner could all be interviewed. I'd be happy to do that outreach. I don't think I'd be the best person to speak on it, but if someone from the housing subcommittee, I could help coordinate that.
And Mary, would you be willing to be a commissioner that was spoken to?
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. I guess the question is, do we want to first put together a letter and kind of lay it out? Or, you know, do we want to dispense with that step? Because, you know, I'm just, you know, sort of asking for the will of the commission on that.
I kind of like the idea of being on public record too. I mean, you know, the press is one thing, but public record is another. So I think letter would be important.
I'm glad to work on a letter. Is there anyone else who's interested in doing a first draft, or shall I do that and circulate it? I think I could certainly get that to y'all by Saturday. I'm not sure I can get it done tomorrow, but all right. So this is what I understand to be next steps. And if I leave something out or I get it wrong, please correct me. But we're going to draft a letter and we're going to make that public and try to get some press attention. And we're going to, we're obviously proceeding with the FAP, which is a time-consuming process, but we're going to review the ordinance and determine whether we think we need to make recommendations for changes to the ordinance.
Yep.
And I was suggesting that go through the housing committee. I guess it could theoretically go somewhere else, but that was my suggestion, as it's housing related. So did I accurately reflect kind of the commitment of the commission? Is that how we wish to proceed? Let's do thumbs. People agree? Okay. Right.
And it's very cold tonight too. Is everyone housed at sheltered tonight?
That we are aware of, everyone is sheltered tonight. And what I will say, when this particular, we're very fortunate that the cold weather shelter for Patcham has since opened, since this particular individual's heartbreaking story has happened, and that will certainly take some of the pressure, like that's certainly a pressure relief valve, but it's also not the solution for everyone, which is a really good segue. Jessica asked in the comments if there was anything else, and I do have one other ask of the commission. Premier Circle is an amazing resource for our community. Our community has created this to provide housing opportunities for unsheltered community members who are at greatest risk for morbidity and mortality due to COVID. Premier Circle is using the CDC high risk list, which is on their website, to determine eligibility for housing at Premier Circle. So essentially, in addition to being unsheltered, an individual must have one of the diagnoses on the high risk list that the CDC has created. With one exception, which is why I'm here this evening. Substance use disorder is a condition on the high risk CDC list. Substance use disorder, as defined by the CDC for the purposes of this list, includes many things, but two of the conditions that it includes are addiction to alcohol, as well as people in recovery who have not recently used illegal substances. Mary, I know that you're an attorney, and I imagine that there are other attorneys that I'm speaking to as well. So I know that I'm preaching to the choir when I tell you that case law has clearly established these populations, people who are addicted to alcohol and people in recovery who have not recently used illegal services, as people with disabilities to whom both the ADA and fair housing protections attach. Right now, the policy of Premier Circle is that even though substance use disorder is on the CDC high-risk list, that it is the only condition on the CDC high-risk list that does not make someone eligible for shelter at Premier Circle. We are incredibly grateful that Premier Circle has indicated a willingness to meet with us after Thanksgiving to discuss this policy. We have been encouraging them to change it for a few months now. And we're really grateful that it sounds like we'll have the opportunity for further dialogue after Thanksgiving. I would respectfully and humbly request that the Human Rights Commission would write a letter to Premier Circle in support of changing the eligibility criteria for shelter to extend to those that are protected by the Fair Housing Act as a result of their disability.
Anna, can you tell me more about Premier Circle and kind of what kind of entity it is? I'm just sorry, not familiar.
Premier Circle is a housing opportunity for individuals who are both. There's 3 eligibility criteria. You have to be unsheltered. You must also have one of the conditions, thank you, Jessica, for putting that in the link in the chat. You must also have one of the conditions on the CDC high-risk list, with the exception of substance use disorder. And you have to be able to manage your own, what we call activities of daily living, essentially. It is the site of, it used to be a motel, and I'm gonna get the name wrong. The Red Carpet, thank you, Todd. It used to be the Red Carpet Inn.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. That was helpful.
And Premier Circle itself, the site of the Red Carpet Inn, I believe is in the county by about a block. But I do know that residents of Charlottesville are routinely referred to Premier Circle. And I also believe that city funds are used to support its operations. And those 2 reasons are why I would be significantly grateful if the Human Rights Commission would feel like they could write a letter in support of our request that this policy be changed.
So while that seems like an easy enough request, I do have a question about it, and that is, and maybe this is for Todd, but if there were an actual complaint made to the Office of Human Rights and we had to adjudicate it, what impact would this letter, would that cause, a conflict that would be problematic for our ability to hear that kind of complaint?
Yeah, that's a great question. And just to be clear, while Premier Circle itself is in the county, Potchom's administrative offices are incorporated in the city. And so therefore we would have jurisdiction over a complaint, I believe, of discrimination filed against Premier Circle. So, because you're filing it against the parent organization being Potchom. But yeah, that is a good question. Yeah, I mean, you would be evaluating the evidence and the merits of the case that's brought forth, not necessarily. And if it were a different thing, we're not talking about the protection of substance use as a thing. We're talking about something else that's actually a protected class under the ordinance. So you'd be adjudicating something that's under the ordinance rather than this. So I don't know. It's one of those, I don't know until we get there kind of things, but it's a good thing to consider. And we could certainly ask for a legal review on that.
It's interesting to me that question is being asked in this context, and it was not asked in the context of my initial concern about a motel, because I think that the same thing could be said then.
Yeah, my concern is that it's naming a specific entity, and so if a complaint was made against that entity, I'm not saying we won't do it. I'm just raising this as a concern. I am concerned that we would be somehow disqualified from adjudicating that if we'd taken a position kind of ahead of time. I don't know if that's accurate. I mean, as Todd, as we discussed earlier this week, the ordinance is silent in a number of ways about what happens if there's, if there are conflict of issues. It just doesn't speak to it, and so. So it's an issue I raise, but I just don't know the answer.
I would tend to err on doing what we think is the right thing, and then if it turns out to have caused a conflict, then we deal with that when it arises.
Any other thoughts? Ernest?
Yeah, so Mary, you're saying that since this would be going after a company and not protecting an individual, that we might draw an issue that way.
I just don't know. I think
right.
My concern is that if we express a concern about the actions of a particular company and somebody files a complaint against them, that they might have some legitimate basis for saying, like, you can't hear this matter. I think if it's the will of the commission to write the letter, we can do that. We can ask for an analysis by the city attorney. It really was a question more than, an argument that we shouldn't do it.
Right. Yeah, my biggest thing was, as long as we had jurisdiction.
Yeah, Andy? Sorry.
As long as we had jurisdiction to do it, then I think, yes, we need to try to do and support them changing that aspect of their criteria of not allowing someone to be there, and then go from there.
Andy, you had your hand up?
Yeah, it seems like if we're not going to focus on a specific thing, is there a way to focus on the substance abuse disorder aspect of it and just say, we're in favor of looking at the eligibility criteria and not, not about the particular organization somehow to, let's see. So I guess it's just that one organization is determining the criteria. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering if there's any sort of broader guidelines they're working under, or is it just specific to that organization?
It is just specific to them.
Okay.
So Lindell has suggested that we, sort of commit to, I'm paraphrasing, but that we commit to going ahead and writing the letter. What do the rest of the folks think? See some nodding. Yes. Would anyone else care to take on drafting that letter? You just know I love drafting letters.
You do it so well.
Well, I don't have another commitment on this weekend on Saturday, so I could knock off 2 drafts instead of 1. So we will put that together.
I want to clarify one thing that I think I heard Mr. Chambers say. I just want to be incredibly clear. The issue is not whether or not people addicted to alcohol are allowed to be at Premier Circle, because some of them are. The issue is that addiction is not itself singularly qualifying, whereas every other condition on the high risk list is. So I just want to be incredibly clear that we're not saying that as a rule they are barring every single person who is addicted from alcohol from being there. It's just that your addiction to alcohol, even though that's on the high risk list, is not what qualifies you. It's because you are pregnant, or you have cancer or diabetes, or one of the other. Those are the only ones I can remember off the top of my head. So I just want to be incredibly clear about what I'm trying to communicate, and I'm just incredibly grateful for this commission and your support.
Anna, is it all right if I contact you kind of to make sure that the draft language is consistent with what's actually happening?
Absolutely. I would appreciate that very much. You've got my email address.
Yep. Mm-hmm. All right. I think we have agreed to take some specific action. We'll craft 2 letters and we'll proceed with an analysis of the ordinance and a determination of whether the ordinance needs to be changed.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing this issue to our attention.
Todd, can you make me go away? Can you demote me?
Yes.
Thank you.
That sounds, I will make you an attendee again. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. Good evening.
Thank you, Anna.
All right. The next business matter has to do with the quorum rules of the Human Rights Commission. And I think, as we all have recently learned, or maybe you all knew, the bylaws, the ordinance, no, the rules of the commission, not the ordinance, require 7 individuals to be present for a quorum. And that's regardless of how many people are on the commission versus, requiring a majority. And that's a pretty high standard. If we want to change that, we have to provide 5 days notice. So I would suggest that if we're interested in changing that, we make that decision tonight, publish it, and we would be able to vote at the next meeting.
Is that actually the actual process we have to? I mean, is it not possible to vote on it and then have it sit for 5 days and then the vote become effective? If there are no, I don't know what the point of posting it for 5 days is. Is somebody going to come back and say, no, you can't do that? Or I'm just curious. It just seems like a funny, arbitrary kind of weird thing to do.
Jessica?
I feel like when Sue was here, we talked about this, but by Martha's Rules of Order, a quorum is based on the number of people attending. Isn't there a formula for that, for the number of people attending and not a specific number?
unfortunately, our bylaws are really clear that it's not a majority, it's 7 people. And I don't know about your question.
No, I understand what it says. I'm asking, is that what we're going towards?
Can you say that again, Jessica? I'm sorry.
I'm asking what we're going towards. I know what it says. I know it says 7. I'm saying Martha Rules has it where it's not based on the number of people that have shown up. It's a formula, which I can't think of the formula right now, but it's based on the number of people that have shown up divided by a quarter or something. I don't know. But I'm asking, what are we going towards? Just taking that out specifically that we don't have to have a quorum, or what are we changing it to?
I would suggest something like more like 50% of the commission members, but I'm certainly open to other folks' ideas. We have 9 members now, Todd.
Yes, you currently have 9. And the change in the ordinance that council put into effect last February limits it to 9 going forward.
I think one concern, if we were to change it just to majority of people present, that there's a possibility that very few people could vote on something then, unless it was like a minimum of 50% of the full board or something like that.
I think we might be conflating like how many people need to pass something with how many people need to be present in order to have it be an official meeting, right? So that's a different question, right? Like how many people need to be present for any action to be taken.
Well, Jessica just put in the chat that a quorum is established from, this is from Martha's Rules. A quorum is established in a meeting if half or more of voting members are present. So that means if we could have 5 people present if we have 9 on the board. And then if the vote could pass with just a majority of people, that would mean 3.
Right.
So that's very few people approving of something out of 9.
Well, on the other hand, they are like publicly noticed meetings and people know what is going to be taken up. I mean, I'll just say this. It's my view that 7 is kind of an extraordinary, like is sort of unusually demanding. But obviously we need to vote on this. And so, I'd love to hear from other folks what your thoughts are.
I agree that 7 is unusual and unusually demanding and makes it hard to get things done.
So I have a question. I think I understand what Jen is concerned about. And let's say there's a scenario in which we have a vote coming up. It's been noticed and we're going to vote on something. We have 4 people show up. Let's say we said that 7 was, whatever. We had 4 people who showed up. So we have a quorum technically, and 3 people voted. Well, no,
you don't have a quorum.
4 would not be a quorum.
Well, I'm using Jeanette's example though, which I thought was if we said that 4 was a quorum. All right, then I misunderstood.
I think she said 5, right?
Okay, so there's 5, but 3 would be the voting. Okay, so 5. Okay, we've got 5. 3 would pass. 3 people could pass this. I'm hearing maybe that the concern might be that is just a very few people making a decision on behalf of a much larger group of people. But I think that I guess I would say that while I hear that, don't we always have the opportunity for a board member, for a commission member, once they've seen what's going to be voted on, if they can't be there, couldn't they ask that there be further conversation? Or it seems to me that there's opportunities for people to be there to vote if they want to, or to say something ahead of time to say, I think this needs more conversation. I don't know. I think 3 is okay. I'm okay with that as long as we're sure that everybody gets a chance to see everything and be there to vote if it really matters to them.
Yeah, I'm okay with that also in the sense that, like, you know, we send out an agenda, people know what's on there, and you know, but you know, we need a majority of folks here to make that change. So you know, would love to hear from people if they have other thoughts.
I'm in favor of reducing the quorum to a majority. I think that just makes sense because I think that's what most other commissions are like. So I don't see why we would have something that's so different.
I think it may have been adopted at a time when there were just more commissioners, but it seems to be tying it to a majority allows for, you know, if there are vacancies, you know, for that to work more easily. Any other thoughts before I kind of move toward voting on this, Ernest?
For me, I would be more comfortable if it was 5 and not 3, but that's just me. I would love to see it 5 and not 3.
Well, you mean 5 for a quorum?
Yes.
I think that's the proposal, is that it would be that it would be a majority of commissioners, which would be 5 under our current system. But I think then the point is that then if 5 people showed up, things could be passed with only 3 commissioners, right? Because a majority, it would be a majority of the people present once a quorum is established. All right, well, I'm going to ask people to show their views about whether this change to require a majority of commissioners for a quorum. Todd, do you think this should be a roll call vote? I
think that might be wise, just given that you're amending your rules and procedures, which is a significant thing. So I can do that, if you'd like. Just creating another column.
Can you clarify before we go into vote that there are 2 things that we're saying? One, that in order to have a quorum, a majority of the board must be present. And then in order to pass a vote, a majority of who's present in a quorum must vote.
I think the second thing is already the rule.
Okay.
Right. So we're not changing that.
Right. Thanks.
We're just changing what it takes to establish the quorum. And the specific proposal would be that a majority of commissioners need to be present to establish a quorum.
All right. You ready for the vote on that?
Yes.
Okay. Mary?
Yes.
Catherine?
Yes.
Jeanette?
No.
Ernest?
Yes.
Jessica?
Yes.
And Wolfgang is not here. Tabia is not here. Andy?
Yes.
And Lindell?
Yes.
Okay. The change is approved. Todd, can you help me understand what the 5-day rule requires? Do we need to vote on it again at the next meeting?
So technically what you would do is present the change that you want to adopt in writing in the agenda packet at least 5 days in advance of voting on it. So I don't know that it's the rules and procedures are your own, which is kind of interesting because I don't think anyone's really holding you to them other than the commission itself.
I think we should comply with the rules when we're changing the rules, right?
It does make sense to me. So you voted this evening, but I would propose that you write it up, create an amended rules and procedures And then if you wanted to make other changes at the same time, you could vote on all that at once.
All right, that sounds good. Thanks. The next thing on our business matters is the formation of an officer nominating committee. I looked at the bylaws and it requires a committee of at least 3 people. So the officers serve 1-year terms. So there will be an election for a chair and a vice chair. Who would like to serve on that committee?
Is the committee for a full year or just until we vote in January?
I think it's just to nominate a slate.
Yeah, I can help with that.
Okay, great. Andy, are you volunteering? All right.
Yes.
All right. Anyone else? Well, I would be glad to do that. My term will be up. Okay. So we will have to convene that subcommittee before the next meeting, correct? So we'll have to, maybe we can identify times for that's a meeting that needs to be, does that need to be a public meeting?
Sorry, I just muted you instead of unmuting myself. With 3 commissioners, yes, it has to be public. So
okay, then we can establish maybe the meeting times for the committees that need to meet before the next commission meeting. We can do that at the end of the meeting. Okay, next up is a chair update, and I've got just a couple things I wanted to mention. One, I am sorry that I missed the last meeting. I understand that it was a particularly contentious meeting, so I was sorry to miss that. I wasn't sure whether an announcement had been publicly made about Todd's new role. I know that the commissioners know that he is now serving as the director of the Office of Human Rights, but I thought we should announce that publicly in a commission meeting for sort of general publication. Congratulations.
Thanks.
And thank you.
It's an honor.
I also wanted to follow up on the letter we sent to City Council regarding the retention and sort of conditions related to city staff of color. I did send a letter to City Council, but I haven't engaged in any other actions to follow up on those requests. And so I thought we should at least have a conversation about whether we want to do anything more than, sort of send the letter.
So you didn't get to speak at City Council? I thought that was the plan.
I did not speak at City Council this Monday. I could do that at the next Monday, at the next meeting, if folks think that makes sense. And I think it is, publicly known that the police chief has, filed a complaint with the Office of Human Rights. And so it is my plan not to address that particular issue or to speak about that publicly, because that is a matter that may come before the commission. So it would be the other sort of aspects of the letter that I would propose to address. And then sort of the final issue that I have, I think, is probably in Todd's update also, but Todd and I and a number of other kind of local advocates attended a meeting at Midway Manor last week at the request of some residents to talk about the conditions there. Midway Manor is a privately owned but subsidized housing project for the elderly and disabled. There were significant concerns. I think those are in there were typed up notes as part of the agenda package. There were significant concerns about the conditions that residents are experiencing, including like constantly broken elevators and a whole host of other issues. I thought we had a very productive meeting talking about that, but later in the meeting, Ms. Hudson actually raised the issue of kind of the general condition of subsidized housing in Charlottesville, including, you know, other complexes and public housing units that are operated by CRHA, and asked us to take some action to address the unacceptable conditions. And I'm not sure what that looks like. I'm not sure kind of what the commission can and should do, but I thought it was certainly a matter of great concern that elderly and disabled folks are really being adversely affected by, you know, sometimes not being able to leave the building because the elevators aren't working. So that's part of my update. I would love us to take some action there. I'm not sure what that looks like. It occurred to me that this could be a matter of a really compelling report, because that, as you recall, the City Council has, built into the ordinance that we would put together periodic reports. I think that would be substantially time consuming. I'm not sure we have this particular expertise. Maybe we do, but I wanted to share with you all kind of our experience. And Todd, you've probably had more conversations than I, if you'd like to share.
I think you summed it up well. And I mean, your idea of that being something that if the commission were to pursue one of the studies that's recommended, or I guess stated that you will do in the ordinance, that might be something, obviously you may want to partner with another organization or other individuals to actually get that work done, because that's super time consuming work. But, in addition to that, we've offered to residents, and we were also there with an attorney from Legal Aid Justice Center who could speak to residents' options under the Landlord Tenant Act. And so, as well as potential for filing complaints with the Office of Human Rights. So those options are also on the table for residents as well. So that's just something to note.
One thought that occurred to me was that we could have, a public hearing on the condition of subsidized housing in Charlottesville and ask, residents and community members to come and kind of speak about this publicly. But I would love to hear from other commissioners.
I like the idea of a public forum, a way for people's voices to be heard. We can amplify that. That seems like a pretty low barrier for us to do at least that. And Todd, when you mentioned partnering with people to do a study or to do a report, there's nothing wrong with us reaching out to organizations like we're already there. Could we work with them to write a report? Could we reach out to somebody at UVA, for example, who might want to do something like this?
Yeah,
I think it's important to do. This has just gone on forever, it feels like, and just needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I think the residents really expressed a great deal of, frustration and
well, if you can't freely move, that is a basic human right. I mean, if you're trapped, that's pretty substantially big issue.
Yeah, and I would say by the end of the discussion, there were kind of, those sort of white pieces of paper on the wall, and we had filled up 4 of them with concerns that people had. So there really was a long list of issues and concerns.
Is there a photo of that by any chance? Did anyone?
I did take pictures of that. Yep. I think Lily typed up probably better notes than than my
yeah,
pictures.
But the picture, yeah, but pictures are pretty compelling.
I do have the pictures. Well, we could put this on the agenda for a public hearing for our next commission meeting. We could have a special hearing on this, you know, specifically on this topic. What do people think?
During the regular commission time? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, I was suggesting sort of two options. One is that we could just put it on the agenda, you know, sort of and ask people to come and speak at the next, what month are we in? The December commission meeting, or we could set a special sort of public hearing. I mean, I assume we can do that, Todd. Is that?
Yeah, I think it's within the scope of the ordinance for you to hold public forums.
I mean, I think that's just a question of, you know, kind of what would be, what would work better for community members.
So I think it would be important to ask community members to try to get some idea of what would work for them, right? I mean, is there a time that would work? Is there a mechanism that would work? How do we make sure that we get the most voices and it's not too burdensome? Because I'm willing to join at any time. You know, I mean, we could. I'm willing to be as flexible as possible. But I think we should be a special. I think it should be on its own. This is just huge.
We could reach out to FAR, in addition to the residents of Midway Manor, and ask FAR to, you know, suggest a time that would work best. Because if we want residents to speak, then it needs to be at a time that would be accessible for them.
And just to comment, you know, in touch with one Midway Manor resident as sort of the point of contact. And I think one of the key things for them is what will get prompt action in terms of the repairs, especially of the elevators. And so, yeah, I think that's something to keep in mind. Like what creative ways can we, you know, can the commission think of to initiate a prompt response from the owners of the building to make the repairs and address some of the concerns. Obviously, you know, with the complaint process, that always takes a little bit of time because people have to, as you heard from Anna, you have to fill out a complaint form, you have to sign it, get approval. But one of the quicker tools for getting resolution is mediation, right? So, and one of the things that we talked about in the meeting was, can we have like a group action? And no one's ever filed a group complaint through the office, but I think it's worth exploring whether we can pursue that, because if we could get a group in mediation with the owner, that could be a really quick way for them to get a resolution. But just thinking of those ways just to help you kind of mull over what you might want to do as a commission.
I mean, what if we did one more letter encouraging mediation, just saying, you know, this has come to our attention. We're going to be dealing with this, right? Here's a chance to just go into mediation and resolve it without it being a dragged out thing in the public.
But somebody would have to file a complaint to trigger that, right? They can't just go to mediation without, I mean, they could go to some other kind of mediation, but not through the Office of Human Rights.
Oh, so you're saying that they're not planning to do that, or has that not been brought to their attention, or what?
Someone has to file a complaint in order to initiate that, and they're aware of the need to file the complaint. We didn't dig deeply into the mediation aspect of it; just wasn't.
Okay, gotcha.
And we encouraged individuals to speak with, you know, counsel at the Legal Aid Justice Center. People could identify their own particular vulnerabilities and issues, right? So, so that's sort of outside of the realm of what we're doing, is sort of advising like individual people how to proceed. But do other folks, are other folks sort of willing to, you know, host and participate in a special public meeting? All right. Todd, you and I can talk about reaching out to FAR and trying to identify a time. And to the folks at Midway Manor, of course, as well. Okay. That is my chair update. And next up is the Office of Human Rights staff report.
Okay, thanks. As you'll see, the usual reports attached in the agenda packet. Lily has brought the data almost up to the day in terms of entering it all, which is incredible because it's been a lot of work. And if maybe the one takeaway is, I think the number of daily incoming contacts has quadrupled since April, and it just sort of held steady through the past few months. So it's been kind of interesting to see that level of engagement just by making sure that the office remains open and there's somebody here. I guess a few just housekeeping things that are not in the report. I think thanks to everybody. I think we're one commissioner email away from having everybody on the Charlottesville.gov the lineup now. And so just to keep that in mind, I can resend this, but there's a security form that everybody has to fill out. It's super simple, but it's, and I think several of you have already done that, but I think it's a PDF, assignable PDF. So just keep that in mind, because once we get that complete, I think we will shift completely away from all of the personal emails on the human rights email thing and go completely to the .gov email. So your personal emails won't be FOIA'd, which would be nice. And in addition to that, we will probably shift from using Box to using OneDrive for documents, because then all the documents that you workshop on now in either Box or Google Drive would then be on OneDrive, and then again, makes FOIA very easy. So all that's coming along. Also, you probably saw the email. Everybody except for Jessica needs to reapply to continue on after the 28th of February 2022, because everyone's terms expire simultaneously. So let me know if you have any questions about how to reapply. And honestly, if you feel like you don't intend to pursue another term, let me know. We can, not here, but you can let me know just otherwise, just so we can think about how do we recruit to make sure that we have a full commission and we can do the work that you guys have been doing. So other things with regard to the FAP, so that I've gotten the final feedback from the informal review from HUD. And so I think the substantial equivalence with federal fair housing is like in place now. And so now I'm working on updating the other chunks of the ordinance so that we can then take that to city attorney for a legal review, and then ultimately to you all for a review as well. My question for you to ponder in this meeting would be, do you want to create a subcommittee as we did before when we were amending the ordinance to have a small group of commissioners review the content before we present it to the full commission? Because what I would hope we might be able to do is bring it to the full commission in December. That may be hard to do given all the things we are trying to work on now. But it would be nice to get this in front of council as soon as possible, but it needs to go through you all first. So ponder that. You don't have to answer right this moment, but just something to keep in mind. With regard to hiring, which is a big, wonderful thing that we can do now that we have gotten past the director piece, I'm going to hire a community outreach person, which basically will just be my old position, someone that we can then start to train to do investigation work as well. But at some point, we're going to need to form an interview panel. And so I would love you to think about whether you might like to be on there. I'm not sure how many commissioners we would want on the interview panel or how big the interview panel will be, but I would love to have some input and participation from the commission. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I will probably also include a few city staff on there. So it will be kind of a conglomeration of folks on that panel. And if you have other thoughts about who should be on the interview panel, let me know. And I think that's all the little housekeeping things that I have on my list that aren't in the report. So thanks.
Thank you. Any questions before we move on? All right. next is our work session. And Todd, I'm really going to hope you will remind me, the resolution A21-1, is that the resolution with regard to how to take action in between meetings? All right.
That's correct.
Right. There is a distinct lack of clarity in our, sort of bylaws and ordinance about what action may be taken in between publicly noticed meetings. And so this draft resolution is an attempt to bring some clarity to this. Todd, I think, did you drafted this? Do you want to talk about it just briefly?
Yeah, I think a lot of folks have seen this. It's been in agendas for, I think, probably close to a full year now, and with a few minor revisions. So there's nothing new in this version. I think we had it on last month's agenda, but there was not a quorum, so we couldn't vote on it. So it hasn't changed since then. And just, we'll get a little bit further down, but Lindell took the big step in also drafting a plain language version of it, which is also included. In addition, created a plain language graphic version of it. So there's basically 3 versions of this same resolution. And Lindell's versions are much nicer because they're much more readable. And the version that I drafted is sort of the standard kind of language that you find in resolutions. So in any case, I don't know if you have any questions about what's in there. I think it's been discussed multiple times, but please let me know if you do.
There's one more thing. I don't know if we want to do this all at the same time, but there is one more thing that we had talked about, or do you want to do this separately? And that is the resolution to create a new resolution saying that from now on we'll do plain language. We had talked about that, but I don't know if
it's also on the agenda, but after this.
Okay, so we'll do this one first.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Okay. Well, given how long this has been bubbling up, I feel comfortable suggesting that we vote on this. But before we do that, does anybody have any questions or comments? All right, well, please signal your assent by giving me a thumbs up or saying yes.
Yes.
Okay, does anyone oppose? I think we've got a unanimous vote then. All right, great. Okay, next up is the issue that Lindell just raised, the draft resolution with regard to plain language. Do you want to talk about that, Lindell?
Sure. We had talked about one of the things we were going to do was just put at the end of the A21 resolution that we would do it in plain language. And that just triggered this idea that as we do additional resolutions, we don't want to have to remember to put that in there each time. So Todd's suggestion was that we just create a resolution saying that anytime we do a resolution or a document in the future, we will just automatically also do a plain language version at the same time.
Does that include, for example, the letters that we send?
So the letters ought to, I mean, I haven't, so the letters looked plain language enough to me, but I think we should be aware of that. Yes. So the answer is yes. I think the letters should be in as plain language as possible. Yes. Okay. Accessible. So that's really all it is. It's just a very draft, here's what we can do, that we're going to do it in plain language. So that was my draft version of it. And open for comment.
Comments, questions? Shall we take a vote? Okay, please signal your vote in favor of the resolution by giving a thumbs up or saying yes.
Yes.
Okay. Again, I think we have a unanimous vote and that is approved.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next matter is ad hoc committee updates, and the only committee that met was the Community Engagement Committee.
I'm glad that we could talk about this. So we met, I'm glad that we're going to host a public hearing for Midway Manor. We did discuss, I just want to skip to, we did discuss having a town hall where we can have a discussion with the public also. I think we should put that on our radars on a similar time frame. I'm noticing, oh yeah, that's in the notes. So in summary, we talked about a lot, but we did want to give responses to Ashley, in that we want to recommend a call to action to City Council to hold them accountable for the effects of our Black community members. We also wanted Ashley to know that we feel like she proposed to us, we took on with the ad hoc committee to talk about her list of commemorative events and then other holidays that we wanted, that she listed out in it was in our notes from last meeting, Todd, I think. But we recommended to Ashley, yes, that her ideas are valuable and that the city should focus on educational aspects of the events and amplify the voice of marginalized community. We spent a lot of time just discussing like who and what does that look like. And so there was recommendations for that. I think those were the biggest things from our meeting. Did I miss anything, y'all?
So just to be clear, what are kind of the next, what are the sort of proposed next steps that the committee suggested? Yeah, sorry, I just want to make sure that that we don't just drop this and that we kind of understand what the committee is suggesting.
As far as recommendations to Ashley, there are no next steps. It's just we wanted to respond back to her since she asked us this, so that's outlined. Our biggest next steps were what we already just did, was drafting the plain language and the 821-1.
Were you suggesting a public town hall?
Yes.
That is separate from like something on housing conditions? It's just sort of like any issues people want to?
Yes.
So I'm not opposed to that at all, but I think it would require like a fair amount of work to do either. So I think we should like prioritize kind of an order of doing those, because I'm not sure we could have like two sort of public events that we actually get people out for like in a very short period of time. So well,
I just wanted to bring context. This came from our discussions in our last meeting, that it feels important. I don't know the when, but it just feels important that we are here. We want to hear from community members that we may not be hearing within our meetings. And so to have an opportunity. So we discussed, I didn't go into that, but we discussed kind of the nature of that, but wanting to do like what you guys did, where they have posters and are able to have a structured event where we can really have feedback and be responsive to some of the needs of the public. So there was a conversation about maybe modeling off the dialogue on race. We weren't quite sure if that's where we wanted to go with it. But yes.
I actually really love that idea. I just think there's, that we should do one first and the other second. So just in terms of like, actually getting the public word out and, getting people interested in coming. Andy?
I'm trying to remember, Jessica, was this related to the how we remember August 11th, 12th? And that, because I'm just looking at my notes, you were saying one of the responses would be to have a place for marginalized people to have a voice and to be heard. So was it related to the anniversary, or are you thinking this is a more general piece?
So I mean it for this town hall, but I also mean it for when we were talking about the list that Ashley gave us of things that we wanted the city to agree to amplify in some way, that we educate, and then we also provide opportunities for those groups to have a voice. So in both places. Ernest?
Yes, I think, and part of it was also so so we could hear from community members in between meetings, and also so we would know what's going on in the community, since every kind of advocacies and commitments are in different places within the city on this commission. It is nice to be in one place and hear what community, because I think that's something that we heard in that meeting that we had in October, was the fact that when things started to happen within the city, with Chief Bratney and the firing of so many African-American leaders, that our voice was not heard. And so just us being aware of things that are going on and letting the community know that we know that things are going on as well.
Todd, I assume that sort of putting something like that together would require some kind of help from the Office of Human Rights. What is your thought about kind of timing and how that might work?
Yeah, I think so. With regard to trying to organize a town hall, it would also, if it's a virtual versus a in-person thing, we have to consider that. And if you want to pull communications in on that, also being cognizant that communications is going to be without Brian as of a few days from now.
Are in-person meetings permitted?
Well, that's a good point. Not yet, and I don't know when. So you just have to think about when you want to hold it. I know there's some talk of potentially in January, but again, I don't know. And so I think just think about how you want to, what context you want to do it in, and then when you want to do it, and then we can work it out.
Is it possible?
In the chat, Ernest volunteered to work with Todd, so I don't want to let that go unnoticed, because I think that would be fantastic. Sorry, Jessica.
But I just want to say I'm willing. I don't know if any others on the our community engagement is willing to, but I mean, I've hosted things like this on Zoom and breaking out into different rooms so everyone we can structure it. But I think it's a matter of hearing from Brian and those that be doing the back end, like how many rooms can we have? Can we break out into rooms? Kind of what is our tech if we're going to do it virtually? But I also, one thing that we did talk about is, sorry, it's like all these things are coming back to me, is like, yes, we should have a town hall, but we'd also have a place where people can, and if we can't physically meet, but have a place where people can write out and what their concerns are. Just like Lindell was saying earlier about what happened at Midway Manor, like just that what people are writing out, what their personal concerns are. Can we host something downtown where it just is that people could come by and we have papers set out where they could come and write. So we're trying to be really creative. So whatever we need to do, Todd, of the execution, I will also volunteer to help.
And I think I was recalling something that Charlene said at one point when she was here, was that, be cognizant of when you create an event like this and you gather that information and people raise their concerns to you, be ready to act, because the expectation is that once you take those things, you're going to do something. And so just be thoughtful of that and mindful of like what else is coming down the pike for the commission, and will you have that capacity? So not that you wouldn't, but I just want to be very conscious of that, because I think that one of the dangers of any community engagement is when we go out and we hear a bunch of things and we disappear with the notes and then nothing happens. It can be really disheartening and demoralizing for people.
So I see in the chat, Jeanette also volunteered. So we've got Jessica, Jeanette, and Ernest, who all volunteered to work on this. I think that sounds fantastic. And so maybe we'll add that if we want to try to set times, because those are going to be publicly noticed hearings. We can do all of that kind of well, maybe we should do that now, actually, because we're coming up to matters by the public. So as I observe, I think we have a housing committee meeting, this kind of ad hoc town hall committee, and a committee that has to meet to nominate officers. So Todd, I mean, we could do this now, or if it's easier to do by email, we can also do that. You just tell me what.
I would recommend that we not have the housing committee meeting and have the town hall in lieu of.
Okay, I think that's actually great. So we have two meetings, and it's fine with me if we do this, you know, by email, or we could do it now if people prefer.
Mary, I think you're talking about scheduling, but it might be possible for the nominations committee to also do our business via email, unless that would be inappropriate, and not have to meet. And
yeah,
take up, you know, city communications time.
Is there anything impermissible about that, Todd?
As I recall, I think a lot of what the work of the nominating committee did last time was done over email in terms of just organizing a process to reach out to commissioners. So I don't, as long as you're obviously not voting on things. And so, yeah, I don't, all right, there's a problem there.
All right, that's great. Let's do that. And then the town hall sort of ad hoc committee, do you all want to pick a time, or do you want to do that by email?
I just prefer to pick a time now because I like to get it worked out, but especially with communication being on the call, let us know.
I thought we needed to reach out to FAR and to Midway Manor to pick that time.
No, that's a different.
Oh, this is the other town.
Yeah.
And so we're scheduling three meetings right now, right? Or,
no, we're scheduling one. We're just scheduling one, right? Because we've dispensed with the housing committee meeting.
Sorry, yes.
We are going to do the nominations by email. And so it's just this sort of ad hoc town hall committee that needs to select a time to meet.
And that's separate from the other meeting would be the Midway Manor public and subsidized housing meeting. So that's two you want to schedule?
I hadn't thought we would schedule a meeting about that particularly. I thought we would reach out to FAR and ask them to help us select a date, and we'd just set it up.
Okay. All right. So we're not going to schedule it now. Thanks.
All right. Well, I'm not on that ad hoc committee, so I don't want to set the time. So you all should select a time that works for you all.
When is communications available? Isn't that our restricting factor?
Yeah.
Oftentimes we propose a moment, but I think Brian's off mute, so maybe he has a thought.
Yeah, I would just suggest you tell us when you want to meet, and I'm going to assume one of our staff will be available.
Thank you.
Yes, I prefer to meet during like work hours if that's possible. So like I'm looking at my calendar. Does December 2nd work for you guys? Maybe at 1 or 2 p.m.
And what committee is that one?
Town hall.
I know I can't. I know I have another meeting that day at that time, and it's definitely hard for me to meet during school.
Okay, so what time would you propose?
Usually for me, after 3 o'clock works better. I know that's tough for some, but after 3 o'clock, most days works better for me. Thursdays are a hard day for me to meet after 3 because we usually have faculty meetings. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, I can meet after 3 most days. So,
I'm available on December 3rd after 3. And December 10th.
I can't meet them, but I also don't want to be the bottleneck for this. So I think I can bow from being on this committee and I could just give notes or something. I just can't meet at those times. But if that works better for Jeanette and Ernest, I don't want to hold this up.
Let's figure something out via email where we can all be there.
That's good. Let's do that. Thank you. We can do that.
Right, great. So next we have matters by the public again. And I'll just read my brief statement. We welcome comments and questions and commit on our side to listening carefully and thoughtfully to what we hear. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to speak. The commission requests that you refrain from engaging in personal attacks against staff or members. Please focus your comments and questions on matters related to the human rights within the city. Webinar attenders use the raise hand function. Phone attendees use *9.
Right now we have no raised hands, but we have one member of the public. Adrian, if you would like to speak, feel free to raise your hand and I'll give you permission to speak.
Okay, I will, oh, wait, no, we have a hand.
Sorry. I just have one moment of clarity. One thing I have to clarify. So in the agenda packet, the things that we approved were A21.1, the whereas version, A21.1, the plain language version, and then the flyer, but the flyer is actually referring to the A21.2, which we also approved. So in the packet was not the A21.1 flyer. So there are actually 2 flyers. So so we have approved A21.2, the resolution and the flyer that goes with that. But I don't think we've technically approved the flyer that goes with A21.1, unless anybody cares. You've seen it before. I just don't, it just wasn't technically in the vote.
My apologies, I didn't realize the difference.
Was it not in the packet?
No, there's 2 flyers now. But the original was in an earlier packet. It's just not in this one.
It was in last month's packet, I believe.
Yeah. So it didn't actually technically get voted on.
Well, why don't we, for clarity, I mean, for clarity purpose, why don't we just vote on that now? And so.
Does everyone want to see it? Should we pull it? I mean, should I find it and pull it up, or do you remember seeing it and you're fine with it?
I've seen it.
Okay.
All right. So if you want to approve, please signal by raising your thumb or saying yes. Okay. All right, it passes. Okay. Since we didn't have public comment, we'll dispense with commission response to matters by the public. And next up is commissioner updates. Any additional updates from commissioners? Okay.
Yep. So I realized it was in our notes for the community engagement, but Catherine was able to talk or got information from Ashley that she is proposing to do the bystander training, which I think was a big win. So I just wanted to mention that, call attention to that.
Yes.
Oh, that's
great. Thank you for suggesting that, Jessica. That was a really great suggestion.
Agreed. All right. Next up on our agenda is next steps and adjourn. I think we have delineated our next steps. Any additional proposed next steps besides those that we've already identified?
So I thought we were going to talk about this here, but we did have in our, you asked like next steps from our community engagement. Sorry, I'm just re-looking at this, that we did have a recommendation for you, Mary, to make a statement in support of the Jefferson School proposal at the next city council meeting.
Oh, I could just throw it in with my other stuff. That's great. I actually love that proposal and I'm so happy to be able to speak about it.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up too, Jessica. I think that's great.
And it will be on the December 6th agenda for a vote.
Excellent.
All right. If there's nothing else, then we will adjourn.
Can I just add something? We did figure out a date for the What is it for?
The town hall. The town hall
planning on December 6th or 7th at December 7th at 4 p.m. That works for everyone, right?
Good work.
And sorry, Mary, I didn't mean to cut you off. You're about to do what you do great in summarizing our next steps. I always appreciate that.
Well, I have a lot of them written down. I know that I am tasked with writing 2 letters with regard to the issues that Anna raised. And I will attend City Council and speak about the retention of the retention and treatment of Black staff and the Jefferson School proposal. Any other next steps that we need to identify? Obviously, and I'm also work with Todd to reach out to FAR to identify a date for a public meeting about housing conditions. Anything else?
I have my to-dos on articulated in the minutes. I need to make sure we get A21-1 resolution to you, Mary, for a signature. So I'll create a signable PDF for that. A21-2, which is the plain language one that Lindell wrote. I'll make sure that's a signable PDF for you. And I think we also passed the language access plan resolution, which I don't remember the number of at the moment. So I also need to get that to you for a signature and then post all that stuff on the website, in addition to, I think, probably 3 or 4 letters that I need to consolidate and make sure I have posted on the website, because a lot of them have gone pretty quickly, and I have them, but I just haven't gotten them on the website yet. So if you look on the website and you notice anything missing from any of the recent letters or statements that you've issued, please let me know, because it is sometimes hard to keep track of all those. So, and then last question for you. Did anyone, I put it out there for a moment, but going to work on finalizing the revisions to the ordinance. It's a massive document now. I spent probably 3/4 of the day on that today again. Does anyone want to, I can send it out via email so you can review and comment on it, or I don't think you need to necessarily have a committee to review it. I think last time Lindell and Sue met with Allison and I to review some things and make some changes to it. But how do you want to handle that now? Or do you just want me to email it to you and you can send feedback, and then I'm just going to proceed with getting it to the city attorney's office as quickly as possible? How do you feel about that?
I would propose that you email it to us and we give you feedback. And if anyone feels the need for kind of additional communication, that we just let you know that, we think it should be on an agenda, or there should be some conversation. Let's proceed with the assumption we can do it by email.
Let's do that. That would be probably more efficient. Thanks.
Okay. If there's nothing else, then I declare. Ernest, you're waving?
I just want to say good luck to Brian. Thank you for your service, man. And good luck where you're going, what you're doing next with you and your family. Thank you, sir.
Agree.
Thank you very much. I'll see you down the road.
That's all, Brian. Thank you.
We will definitely miss your calming voice. All right. This meeting is declared adjourned. Thank you all, and we'll talk very soon. Thanks. Okay.
Take care,
bye.